The Gaza Strip could become uninhabitable for residents within just 5 years, the UN Development Agency has said. Now, this sounds like a repeat after the 28 Israeli war on Gaza 5 years earlier. Yet the world is standing idly by. The organizations that are condemning this, well, they failed to rally support against Israel, in which nearly a decade of its grueling blockade on Gaza is responsible for the hardships of Gazans. In this edition of the debate, we'll discuss why Israel is allowed to continue with this blockade, which is making Gaza uninhabitable, unless that is the goal of the international community and Israel.
The UN Conference on Trade and Development on Assistance to the Palestinian People says 3 recent Israeli wars on the region and Tel Aviv's nearly decade-long economic blockade are the main factors exacerbating the situation in Gaza. The recent 51-day war in Gaza has killed over 2,200 people, displaced 500,000 others, destroyed or severely damaged 20,000 homes, 148 schools, and dozens of hospitals. Incessant conflicts have destroyed Gaza's ability to export and produce for the domestic market, damaged its already debilitated infrastructure, and left no time for reconstruction and economic recovery.
The economy is still slowing down. Lots of infrastructure has been destroyed. Lots of industries and small workshops has been destroyed, not coming back to work.
The UN says in 2014, unemployment in the coastal region reached 44%, the highest level on record. Last year, Gaza experienced negative economic growth of -0.4% and its first recession since 2006.
The unemployment in the occupied Palestinian territory, it's about 30%. Food insecurity is high. It's about one in 3 households are food insecure. The situation in Gaza is much worse, actually.
Incessant Israel's aggressions on Palestinians are not just about war and blockade. It has withheld almost $700 million of Palestinian clearance revenue, which comes from taxes on imports into the occupied Palestinian territory. Gaza and its people have long been plagued by war, aggression and economic blockade. This isn't the UN's first report on the plight of Gazans. Human rights groups say donor support is highly insufficient for the recovery and reconstruction of the impoverished region. Many European countries, along with the US, continue preaching human rights, yet they remain silent when it comes to what Israel is doing to Palestinians. Now, they need to take serious action before a humanitarian tragedy unfolding in the Gaza Strip further tarnishes their human rights record.
Our guest joining us for this edition of the debate from the International Action Center, we have Sara who joins us from New York. We have journalist and political commentator Philippe Assouline, who joins us from Los Angeles. I'd like to welcome you both. Philippe Assouline, I'll start with you. This new UN report says following 3 wars by Israel against the Gaza Strip and its 8-year economic blockade, the Gaza Strip could become uninhabitable in less than 5 years if the current economic trends continue. What do you think about the UN findings?
In general, the UN is not the most reliable party to discuss these issues. However, I think it's absolutely a natural consequence of having a jihadi, takfiri government that decides to use its resources to attack civilians. Hamas is a jihadi government. It has no qualms about declaring its intent to kill Jews, to target civilians. It has invested in tunnels to kill children and in firing rockets on homes, on people sleeping at night. There's consequences to that everywhere on the planet. You would defend your children if they're in danger. The co-panelists would defend their children if they're in danger. I would defend my children if they're in danger. That's what the Israelis are doing. The consequence of choosing terrorism is that you're going to face hardship. The Gazans are lucky that it's Israel who's their opponent, because were they facing Iran or Saudi Arabia or even the Egyptians now, they'd be doing much worse.
Sara Flounders, do you have a response to our guest there?
This is really a criminal Zionist who is speaking, who is saying nonstop 100% lies about the Palestinian people and Israel's role of war against the Palestinian people. There's no record in the world that can match what Israel is doing in Gaza today, with the highest unemployment rate in the world and literally hundreds of thousands, 500,000 people totally destitute, 20,000 homes systematically destroyed. And every Israeli war on Gaza has been a calculated effort to destroy the infrastructure and the future for the Palestinian people. It has been calculated to target the infrastructure, including 148 hospitals in the last set of Israeli strikes, along with the 20,000 homes, along with hospitals, schools, first aid and clinics. That is what Israel targets when they make war on the Palestinian people. There's no excuse and no apology that can be given for this systematic war on Palestine, nor since the very creation of Israel, the war on the Palestinian people. Their displacement into really millions of refugees around the world, the settlement increase today that's going on in the West Bank in violation of all international law. All of this is systematic violation of international law and of human rights. There's no apology or an excuse that can be made for this level of criminal activity.
Philippe Assouline, you have a response.
Yeah, I have many responses. I think when an answer starts with a personal insult, it's telling us to the value of what's said afterwards. The idea that Israel would be preached morality to while someone is defending Hamas, for example, is absurd. We're talking about unemployment. The unemployment rate among the youth is higher in Spain, for example. The record couldn't be worse, supposedly. In Syria right now, there's a genocide going on. My co-panelist has a clear agenda. It is using trigger words to manipulate emotionally people, to generate hatred for Israel. It's using stories to paint this picture of Arabs as incapable children who are never responsible for the consequences of their actions. The government of Gaza is Hamas. They are a genocidal terrorist group. They attack civilians. They support ISIS in the Sinai. When you attack my children, I will respond. When somebody attacks your children, God forbid, you will respond. Israel has responded with one hand tied behind its back. If really it wanted to wage war on the Palestinians, it wouldn't have withdrawn in 2005 completely and left all its industry there. It would have destroyed Gaza entirely in a half hour, the way Iran or Saudi Arabia would do and are trying to do in Yemen right now. The co-panelist is part of this industry of a hobby of pitying brown people, which I find offensive as a brown person myself from the Middle East, and replacing sane argument with these manipulative slogans and these incendiary accusations that are absolutely ridiculous. You don't bring up an argument about international law when you're effectively defending a terrorist group. It is insulting to everybody.
Sara Flounders.
Well, just to point out some obvious facts, which of course this Zionist speaker refuses to acknowledge, but Hamas,
absolutely, I'm a Zionist. And you don't know what that word means. And I'm tired of being insulted here.
And very much Zionism should be hated around the world for its apartheid practices. And that cannot be denied, that Israel today exists with rights only for the Jewish population and for the Arab Palestinian people.
Absolute
there are no
nonsense.
Respects. And the displacement and homelessness in Gaza today, the displacement in the West Bank that is going on, the war in the surrounding area, of course, is because Israel is totally dependent on U.S. aid and is carrying out U.S. policy in the region, and is quite willing to do so because it is a dependent state. It has no real, this policy would end tomorrow if U.S. aid ended tomorrow, and this is something that my Zionist co-speaker understands very, very well.
Go ahead, Philippe Assouline.
I don't know where to start. I mean, on this, I enjoy coming on this program, but on the other hand, I'm always faced with people who throw slogans and insults at me, and it's a bit dispiriting at times. Zionism is the belief that the Jewish people have a right to a country in the Middle East, that there shouldn't be just Sunni Arabs everywhere, that we can share the Holy Land and make it into two countries. I am absolutely a Zionist, and I think it's a basic moral position. Now, with the other accusations of apartheid and all these nonsense trigger words because of this pet project by some American quote activists to turn black into white, Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East. Point blank, it is the only country that has any regard for human rights. And to sit there and to criticize Israel on the basis of human rights while defending its enemies is sheer hypocrisy, and it is insulting the audience on top of personal insults towards me.
Well, I'd like to ask you something here, Philippe Assouline. Let's take the democratically elected government of Hamas out of the picture. Let's just focus on the...
They weren't democratically elected.
Okay, let's just focus on the people there in the Gaza Strip.
Acknowledged around the world, and they were international observers. They were most certainly democratically elected by the overwhelming majority.
The
of the
legislative
that is
the legislative branch was elected. They took executive power by a violent coup, throwing people off buildings like ISIS.
Israel is not a democracy. Is it an apartheid state?
The question was for me. I believe the question was directed at me this time.
Okay, let me ask the question then. Philippe Assouline, looking at the people in Gaza
Yes.
only, you're looking, I know you said that you don't find the UN to be a credible organization, but we're looking at some basic facts. 3 successive Israeli wars over the past 6 years, and you have thousands and thousands of deaths that have happened. And this report indicated there's also a blockade that's going on the 9th year. Now, what this is doing is it's harming Israel's image. This problem needs to get solved. I mean, you could go through practically any pages in the internet when you pop up Gaza and Israel, you could see there's a lot of anti-Israel sentiment as a result of this unresolved problem. Why doesn't the problem get resolved? What would you do to resolve the problem?
Okay, that's a good question. First of all, one cannot resolve the problem alone. Israel's image problem is the result of a propaganda campaign that's oil funded by the same people who are supporting ISIS right now. So the image problem and the reality don't necessarily have that strong a connection. Israel is facing a terrorist group that Egypt is also putting a blockade on that decides to fire 15,000 rockets on Israeli civilians. Therefore, there's wars. When you decide to attack a country and kill its civilians, you're going to face war. It's a basic rule of adulthood. There are consequences to people's choices. Now, you're asking me what I think the solution would be. Should Hamas accept Israel's existence, or even a very serious long-term ceasefire, Israel will continue to ease the blockade, which is absolutely a legal blockade, according even to the UN, and from there the economy will improve. But this notion that Gaza is suffering some kind of humanitarian crisis is false. The GDP of Gaza is twice that of Egypt, according to some reports. It's higher than Iran. It's higher than Jordan. According to other reports from the World Bank, for example, the GNI per capita is the same as Egypt and is almost that of Iran. The obesity rate in Gaza is among the highest in the world, not according to Western sources, according to Kishawi, who is a Palestinian researcher, okay? There's a manipulation of people's emotions happening here, and money is being funneled from different countries to support a government that does not want the good of the Palestinian people. Hamas wants war. It makes money from war. When you wage war on a democracy or on a non-democracy, you get war in return. Luckily for the Palestinians, it's Israel firing back and not any other country in the region, or even the US, which would have destroyed Gaza a long time ago.
Sara Flounders, the same question, unless you have a response there to Philippe Assouline.
Do you want to repeat the question?
Sure.
I heard so much.
The question would be, you know, first of all, I started with saying that what this unresolved situation has brought for Israel is negative publicity, of which the publicity that's being made by the people who are doing it, they all think that Israel deserves it. For example, the website, the UK website that has gathered almost 100,000 signatures that wants the arrest of the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for the Gaza war. And there's a lot of other websites that are asking Israeli officials to be prosecuted and to stop this genocidal exercise that's being held on the Gaza Strip. What would be the solution? What does Israel need to do? What do the respective players need to do to resolve the plight of the Gazans?
Well, first of all, what Israel needs to do is to totally withdraw from all of the occupied territories, something that they well know is in complete violation, and to give Palestinians full and equal rights, even within the 48 borders of Israel, which they still don't have today. So that would be number one. Stopping the blockade of Gaza would absolutely be essential to do and is a violation of international law. The idea that the UN allows such a thing, it's a violation of international law to ever withhold food, medical supplies, water, and what is essential for human life. And instead, Israel targets and destroys this. The real solution, really, is for the countries of the world to get serious and blockade and sanction Israel until there is complete equal human rights for the Palestinian people. That is the only way forward on this. The idea that continuing to lavish on Israel tens of millions of dollars per day to the state of Israel to continue its crimes, which is exactly what the U.S. does. That only continues the crime that is being committed against the Palestinian people and has led to a total misery. There are all kinds of figures that the previous speaker raised about an obesity level in Palestine, as if that ever had anything to do with the health of Palestinian people, particularly of the children. It is a diet that is completely unhealthy, along with water that is unhealthy, along with denial of medical care. And that is what Israel has imposed today just in Gaza. But we have to look at the whole picture of what Israel is doing in the region. And that is what has to be stopped, because it was never about equal rights for the people of the region. It was always about creating an outpost, an ally for U.S. imperialist policy in the region. And demanding an end to that is the only way forward.
Okay, we're going to take a quick time. I'll listen to some of your comments. I'm sure you have some responses there, Philippe Assouline. Let's take a look at listen to some of the viewer comments, and we'll get back to the debate.
A just and civilized world would do to Israel what Israel is doing to Gaza. Their fighting is meaningless if nothing is going to be done. My question is, what is the UN doing about it? I think the UN needs to stop it and do something to Israel for wiping Gaza off the map. They need to give the Palestinians their own state and give them the settlement that have been stolen. I'm sick of the double standard. It's not habitable now, never mind a few years from now.
Just some of the viewer comments there. Philippe Assouline, did you happen to catch that video that went viral about the Israeli soldier that was handling that 11-year-old boy who had a cast on his hands or on his elbow?
Yes.
I'm not too sure. What did you think?
Yes. I think it was astounding that an Israeli soldier who is armed would be attacked with rocks and mobbed by 5 women and bitten and not fight back. It's a testament to the insane restraint of the Israeli army, and that is forced to do these kinds of patrols to protect its citizens. I dare anybody, including my co-panelists, to go right now and protest her, quote, imperialist US government by throwing a stone at a cop or a soldier or even a mall security guard. Let's see what happens. Then try to bite them and then see in how many seconds she becomes riddled with bullets, because that's how the world responds to attempted murder with stones. Now, this child is 12 years old from a family that has made a name for itself by using its children for propaganda purposes. It's a Tamimi family. They routinely place their children in danger for the cameras. This kid threw a stone at a soldier, and the soldier was kind enough to go and try to take the kid with his own arms, where there is absolutely no requirement or law anywhere in the entire world that would have said, when you're faced with attempted murder, with a stone attack, you go and pick up the kid with your arms. When there's a problem of parenting, Palestinian parents who do this need to stop. You don't put children in danger deliberately for cameras so that people like my co-panelists can then pontificate from the security of America about how terrible the Zionists are.
Sara Flounder's response to Philippe Assouline, I don't know if you saw this video that we're talking about, that Israeli soldier manhandling that 11-year-old boy, 12-year-old boy. Did you see that video, Sara Flounders?
Yes, and it is staggering that a defense of this could even be made, or an equating of stones with an armed soldier. I will agree in one small way with the speaker who said these tactics come home to the U.S., where we have the highest rate of police violence in the world and the shooting down of unarmed Black and brown people right here in the U.S. So U.S. military aid abroad brings U.S. wars back home. That's true. But to defend this criminal act and to say in any way that it's justified to assault an already wounded Palestinian child by an armed Israeli soldier, there's no defense of that can be made, I would think, by a human being who's even pretending to speak in the name of human rights. And there are people around the world who stand with Palestine, and today Israel is isolated and hated because these videos do circulate around the world, and the whole world sees exactly what Israel is doing to the Palestinian people, which means this means women and children routinely and brutally attacked in the most incredible ways, along with the systematic destruction that is going on in Gaza today, in the West Bank. And we should also always address the repression of the Palestinian people within Israel. This is a state with no conscience that is gaining support from the real powers of the world today. And I am in wholehearted support of the boycott, divest, sanctions movement, the one effort that grassroots people can make to say no, nothing, no aid to the Zionist state of Israel, which denies human rights to the Palestinian population.
Very well. I wish we had more time. Unfortunately, we are out of time. Thank you for that. International Action Center Sarah Flounders from New York spoke to us, and journalist and political commentator. Thank you, Philippe Assouline, who spoke to us from Los Angeles. Thanks for tuning in to another edition of The Debate. When we cover Taiwan, the entire team in the capital, Tehran. It's goodbye.